Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had some good talks and some good food during the break, and you're ready to talk more about, guess what, data, because that's what we hear today. And for the next panel talk, I'm very happy to have on stage Alex Pato from Inflection XYZ. Please, Alex. And then we have Antoine Latrille from New Fund, coming all the way from Paris to Prague. And last but not least, Tommaso Codolmari coming from Italy from P101. Thank you, guys. All right. How you're doing? You have your mics over there. Probably we need one more mic, or we can share that one. All right. We are here, as I said, to talk about data. I feel I'm a bit far away from you, but probably we can hear each other. So to set the context for the discussion, I'd like to ask you to introduce yourself and say in a few words the fund, the firm that you're representing, with the investment thesis, the position that you're having, and where you are based, and also the fund. Where is the fund based? And it looks like, Alex, you're going to start.
Yeah, I can start.
Yeah.
So I work at a fund called Inflection. We're 50 million AUM investing in US and Europe along this thesis of sovereign compute. So essentially, how do we scale the amount of compute? How do we make data flow between different systems, different organizations? And then also, how do we improve the resilience of compute as a whole? Yeah, so I'm the only data person on the team, so sort of leading the data product, everything related to that. Yep.
All right, thank you.
I'm Antoine, the CTO of New Fund, so obviously French. I'm the engineering guy. So New Fund is a French and US-based VC. We are around 30 people, and I've been there since a couple of years to move from being a finance VC to being a product-led and data-led VC. So it's a 15 years old company. We have a great track record, and so we have the data for the whole cycle investment into exits.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, Tommaso here. I work for P101. It's a management company based in Italy. We have 3 funds under management. The total AUM is 400 million euros. We invest in Series A startups. We do co-lead or lead rounds on ticket size between 2 and 5 million, because you can lead a round in Italy with 2 million euros. And we are a team of 14 people. I lead the data engineering team. We are 2 people actually. I consider myself more a product manager rather than data engineer. And we invest 65% of our capital is deployed in Italy, 35% outside of Italy. We are industry agnostic, and that's it.
All right, thank you very much for the intro, guys. And now we're going to start with a very hard question, but which is going to be the intro for the panel, and that is, would you say that your firm has a data-driven culture? What does that mean? And also explain a bit in which side of the business you use data the most. May it be the startup scouting and sourcing, the LP relationship, or portfolio management. So if we start, let's say, from the middle with Antoine.
So, as I said before, New Fund is an older fund. They are moving towards the data-driven version of themselves since 3 years. So it's a work in progress. It's a company culture transformation. So we are data-driven, and we are working more and more towards being data-driven. Where we use data the most is on the LP relationship. I mean, the LP phase and portfolio monitoring. So we have around 300 LPs. We have 120 companies in portfolio. So how do you keep a human connection with them over 15 years? And how do you scale this kind of knowledge, which was at the beginning only in the head and the Gmails inboxes of the GPs? So the idea is, going forward, if, train of thought, if you move from 300 to 3,000 LPs, how does your system break, and so what has to become data-driven and automated to make it work.
And what's happening on the other parts of the business, portfolio management and startup scouting? How do you use data over there right now?
We use more like automation to be performant in the operations. We don't yet use automated scoring or things like this. The phase where we use data the most is on knowledge management for the company, the investment phase. And we use knowledge and experts bases. Yeah, and that's kind of my point for 2025 to start on the knowledge management system of the company.
All right, so we have more the human approach on the startup side and more automation and data on the LP side for new fund. All right, what about you, Alex? The same question. Is your company data-driven company?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty blessed because the firm is quite data-driven. I've only been with the firm for about a year now. But before I joined, they put out a blog post saying, we think the future of VC is being data-driven. So it gave me a lot of comfort that I could build and I wouldn't have to do too much to try and move the organization forward as well. So yeah, quite blessed there. In terms of like where we use data the most, we try to take a holistic approach, but I would say a lot of the time is spent on sourcing with kind of trying to find and evaluate startups to augment the work that the investment team is doing. We also do a little bit too with managing value creation, helping founders find top talent or the next fundraise, but more kind of point solutions there rather than fully automated tools.
All right, so compared to Antonio, using data more on the startup side than the LP relations.
Exactly, yeah. So more in the research and sourcing phase. Yeah.
All right, what about portfolio management? Like, do you collect specific data over there for startups, or like what's happening right now?
We've done a little bit in terms of automating our valuation memos. So that actually helped us to test out some of the tools that we would then use for automating the sourcing. So that was quite nice. But I think there's definitely some more work that we can do there. It's on the roadmap.
All right. What about you, Tommaso?
So, are we a data-driven firm? Do we have a data-driven culture? I think few funds can say that. I think if you start from a blank canvas or you greenfield approach, new fund, you can like shape the culture as you want. We are a 10 years old company and we started this process 2.5 years ago. So we are actually doing a data-driven transition, like a cultural shift. And so we are doing well. It's something that we take care about because I think it's if you don't have a data-driven culture, there is no way you can become like a data-driven fund. Technology is the easiest thing to adopt, actually. Okay, it takes a couple of weeks to adopt Raspberry, but it takes months or years for people to start adopting it in a proper way. And also because you need to change the way people work, their workflow, their thought process, and you will find lots of resistance in that. So it's very important to have top-down approach from the management level. If you don't have that, you're capped. And a bottom-up approach from the entire team, because they need to like flourish with idea, and the junior team and the operational team is the best one to provide insights on what can be improved within the company. And so we are getting there. We have all these concepts in mind, and we do it through different ways. We do weekly meetings in which the entire company participates and sees the advancements that we do in terms of data-driven initiatives. So we talk about from partners to the lowest level, which is very important, so it gets in their mind and in the thought process. And I do training sessions on tools, on more general topics. We just did last week a prompt engineering course, which is probably useful for somebody, for someone not, but at least it gets like in the flow and in the thought process. That's the important thing. Maybe practically it's useless, but it's important in the mind. So that is my answer. In terms of where do we use data the most, as Alex said, we have an holistic approach because there is value in 3 main domains, I see. The first domain is the one which is obvious. It's the investment process. The second one is the entire fund accounting and fund administration part. there is lots of automation and still many manual processes there. What I mean by that is like onboarding, KYC, AML, capital calls, distributions, entire life cycle of that, capital accounts, LP reports. That is very manual, and also the LP and investor relations. That's like our client-facing part, and it's very important that it's data-driven, transparent, and we build a good product for our LPs. In terms of the investment funnel, I mean, the most value, but that is objective, we saw all the entire morning talking about it. It's within the origination and screening phases. So that's where we started. And we actually very focused on the first level screening, in which we are trying to automate, remove bias at all. And we are trying to do that without even opening a pitch deck. So we have now sort of a system that automatically puts data within our CRM, reaches people and our organization data, and then runs a scoring algorithm with respect to our investment thesis and tells us which companies to discard, which is very important. Not which company to go to, which company to discard. That saves a lot of time because we want to know which companies we don't even have to open and look at the profile, but all the rest, which is the majority, we want to have like our hands-on approach on that. So that's a practical example.
What you said, like the last bit was very interesting, that you don't look at the pitch deck, but yet you collect data. What data do you collect, and like where do you take this data from to give you this score?
Yes, so the funnel works like that. Mainly, we either have a company website or if it's proactive sourcing, we made a company website or a deck. Okay, that is the input. Then from there, we are sort of a software that we developed that extracts the data from the pitch deck or from the company website, and then it takes the domain, so you can enrich it with other data providers. So you enrich the company data, and then it extracts also the people, and it enriches with LinkedIn data and other people data providers that are available to everyone. Then it builds a company profile. The data flows in Affinity, actually. So we have specific fields that are populated by that. And once we have all this data, so every company pretty much has the same amount of information, theoretically, because of course you don't have... so we can run this sort of scoring algorithm, which is the V1 now, which is very basic, but still it works. That tells us this is not a match for you, don't even look at that, just look at the others. So if you suppose that you have 100 pitch deck coming in every week, and you know that 40 you don't have to look at, means lots of time saved for your team. And also you remove bias, because that's one, I think, in the first level screening, it's a bad thing to have, and it's a human thing. There's nothing we can do about it, so we need to find workarounds not to have biases. And because you can open a pitch deck, maybe you like the way information is there and is presented, but it shouldn't be like that. Also, there's no correlation with a nice pitch deck and company performance. So that's what. If you look at the biggest company in the world, yes.
So it's like if you don't like the first slide and the colors, you're not gonna look further.
Maybe one day you wake up and you like a company, and if you put yourself, you look another day with another mindset, maybe you don't like it. So that doesn't maybe good because you had an argument with your girlfriend or something, and then that day you're not. That's it's true, eh? That's
the power
how we
of
work.
data.
It's not.
All right, thank you very much. And going to the second question, which you, Tommaso, already answered, it was about how do you make the technical team speak the same language with the investment team? And yeah, it's very good, Alex, because you said you're the only technical team in your...
Yeah, I'm the only person. So we're 6 people worldwide, 2 investors, 3 people in operations, and then myself. So I think one thing that's been really helpful at Inflection is that there's just kind of this natural curiosity between myself to understand more about our thesis and what we look for in a company and what we look for in founders and what makes a good investment. But then also from the investment side, they're very curious about the work that I'm doing and, what's a knowledge graph? And we actually had one partner put together a little dictation script because he got so sick of writing out emails and did that over the weekend. And so it gives, an opportunity for me to commiserate with him about the state of Python tooling. So it's, there's this natural curiosity, which I think has really helped to bridge that between the two teams, but yeah.
And also because probably they want to do the work faster.
Exactly, yeah. It wasn't on our roadmap to automate, but yeah, that worked for Jonathan, and just did it. So that's great.
All right, thank you. What about you, Anton? You're the CTO of New Fund, and you started quite recently with the fund building, the engineering team. Probably because you want to be data-driven as a fund.
Yeah, so I started by being alone with a freelance and spent 1 year like this, which is like a heavy toll on your mental health. I now have a team of 2, going to 3 soon. The biggest issue was to start by building not the AI part, but like the engineering side. Explaining to them, okay, it will be groundwork, which will lay the foundations for a couple years, and which will remain even after I will leave, if I leave. So that was the first part, and I had to sell them okay, we will do groundwork. You won't see a lot of value until a couple months, but after that, you will have a world of opportunities. So it was an act of balance between the engineering, like when you build a highway, well, you dig the ground and you have no road. And then the quick wins, automating small stuff, like you said, trying a tool and getting them on board. What was the more easy, so easier, the buy-in process, as Tommaso said, the push actually comes from the GPs. One of the GP, he always wanted to create a tech startup. He created a fund, and so he's trying to have this tech startup mindset. And he's like, "Oh, I want to build a product. I want to do that, 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 and that." And I'm like, "Okay, let's build the stack for this." So we are a team of 30. We have people in the US, in France. We have around 10 investors. We have 3-4 people in the tech team. We have marketing people. We have the finance and admin team, and the operating partners. It is quite easy to have the buy-in from the investment team because most of them are either have an engineering background or are quite young, so they come, like Tommaso said, with this fresh view, the things they saw before. They're like, "Oh, from my experience, this works well. Can we add it to the stack?" So the hardest part is actually to tame them down. Otherwise, your backlog just explodes. And you kind of lose focus. So that's actually the hardest part, is to keep some focus. For the buy-in, the hardest team is the finance team. They are eager for automations because a lot of manual labor, like Tommaso said, the legals, like signing a contract, redacting the contract, and computing valuations. There is still a lot of things done by hand because it's experience, and this is where I have to balance we will automate this part, like free you some time so you can focus on your high value tasks. So that's the automation part. But then let's look at those high value tasks. What would it require in engineering to be able to automate them or assist you into being more productive there? And so that's you have to fight against Excel.
All right, thank you. That's a very good point. All right, so we have 5 more minutes for the questions, and then we're going to have a few minutes for questions from you guys. So if you have anything to ask the panelists, please use Slido, and we're going to take 1-2 questions at the end of the panel. And all right, so no questions. Huh? Going back to the data collection, and I'll ask this to Alex. You're mentioning that you're collecting data about the startups to do the investment pipeline. What data do you use? Where do you collect it from, and how do you organize it? And if you can walk us through the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're pre-seed, seed investing. So we're looking at typically 2 founders and a pitch deck, maybe. And so oftentimes the data that we'll get initially in our sourcing engine is just little hints of little signals that something's going on here. A potential founder has gone into stealth. This company was registered in the company registries. It might get a little bit of insight there, but not so much. So we take that signal data into our tool. We call it Pathfinder. Then we enrich it with more data. So we take, okay, we know the founders. This is their LinkedIn profile. Here's the data off their LinkedIn. This is what they've done. This is what they've built in the past. We had some more context around how the startup was created. Was it from a research institution? Do we know that track record there? What do we know about the space? How did it fit into our thesis? And then we have a set of agents that will go and evaluate the startup for things like thesis fit or the team chemistry or team composition. Is it the right industry? That type of stuff for us, right size. And then eventually it ends up in our CRM system after evaluation process.
So I guess you use automation for all these data,
yeah.
also for categories and putting them in the right place. Do you have it all automized, or do you have manual work in some of these parts?
So all of those steps are all automated. We do have, if we get let's say a list of companies from an incubator or an accelerator, we have the ability to add that into the kind of sourcing or filtering tool, honestly. And this is all laid out in a knowledge graph, so we can see the relationships between the people and the companies and where they've been and how it fits the thesis.
All right. Sounds like an interesting process.
Yeah, it's quite fun.
All right. The next question is for Tommaso, and you mentioned in the intro that you've been the company has been for 10 years, right? And you started the data processes probably a few years ago. Can you tell us of an example on, I don't know, a good decision that's been taken because of the data-driven approach compared to before?
Yes, I'll try to answer these questions from a broader perspective. The way we say it is the fact that we are trying to apply data-driven decision in a systematic and structured way in decision-making processes. So it doesn't have to be a like one-off moment of clarity, or I use the data and this happened. That to me needs to be structural. So in this way, you know that every time it will impact decisions and portfolio monitoring or whatever else. So that is the way we say it. Of course, from before, we didn't do actually any like sort of backlog or engineering or like a reinforcement process or understanding of what we do better now in specific terms than we did before. We did it like from a theoretical perspective. It's very important though that when what we're building now, it's sort of a monitoring layer to understand how we improve with all the like sort of changes that we apply. We are at like very low level of maturity, I think, with respect to what we can get to. So the first thing that we did is review processes, hire the right people, change the company culture, and then slowly start building databases, automating processes, and adopting tools. So it's very important to start from that foundation. And now we are building also sort of this monitoring layer that allows us to answer maybe more questions on how we're improving and understanding and like, you know, drive with more consciousness and understanding what initiatives are best for us. So that's the way I say it.
All right, that's very good. And going back to, or like going to the questions from the audience, question which I think it's very interesting, and I think you're gonna have different answers. Is if you are building or buying the data systems you are using, and what's your approach on this?
Can I answer?
Yeah, go first.
So that's a very cool question, and it depends a lot on the, I think, strategy and but like the specifics of a firm. Okay, in practical terms, the way we do it, we are like 400 million funds, so we have decent management fees, but we rather buy the tools that are off the shelf, so you have CRM, portfolio management tool, valuation tools, all this stuff. It's already built by someone else, just buy it. because the difference doesn't make, like, there is no intellectual property in the tools. It's a commodity. We understood it this morning. Okay, I think the way you configure the tool, you implement them in your investment processes. They are used within the day-to-day. That makes a difference. And every company uses Affinity in a different way. Every company uses a portfolio Raspberry in a different way. So how efficient is the data entry? How efficient is the data use that you take out of that tool? So that's how I say it. And all the custom layer, I think, should be the interaction within this tool. So making sure that the data flows seamlessly, the amount of data, like whatever you collect of a specific company in a CRM, you can collect any kind of data that you want. You have, like, you can modify the table and apply that, like, fit to purpose to what you need. So that is what I think changes. I think at the end of the story, it's like sort of the Coca-Cola recipe. Everybody knows the ingredients, but the way to put them together makes a difference. And that's sort of how we say it. Though, if you are also, for example, there are, I think we need to be very patient in building custom tools. Because if you want to build something big, then you have to take in consideration that you need to maintain it. And maintenance and evolution, okay? This, like, we build products for the company, okay? And those products you build like a version 0, version 1, version 2, version 3, okay? You don't like just build it and you leave it there. After 2 years, it's not going to be useful anymore. So you need to evolve it, you need to adapt. There is maintenance, there is bugs, there is things that you can improve. And you have to take that in consideration. It's just not building that. So that's a very important thing. So we try to keep it as lean as possible and buy what is already there and configure it in the right way.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, if I can add something, it would be buy the tools, build the system. So, and also with building the system comes freedom. So that's where you define what your VC is, how you process things. So you're building you're building the company, actually. So you can't buy the company. And that resonates with a question this morning to André. Like, would you consider selling the tools of early birds? Well, no, because the tech is the fund. So, and even though you have tools inside which are commodities, the system is what you build. And so, yeah, you build the system because this is your fund.
What did you say, Alex?
Yeah, I think obviously we're more on the buy side of things, just given the team size. But the stuff that we do build, I think also we recognize that it may have a limited lifespan. So it may only be that we get 6 months out of this tool before something else comes into market, and then we can swap that out, and then we don't have to maintain it. And we can move on to the next thing that's actually generating alpha. So yeah, that's how we approach it in the fund.
All right, so I think this is a wrap, and this is the time we had for the panel. For the other questions, probably they're going to be answered one-on-one. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you very much for listening, and we're going to continue the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for that. Very insightful, thank you.